For decades, the world feared a nuclear apocalypse that never came. But while we watched the skies, another kind of war was unfolding beneath our feet. It is a conflict where the weapons are invisible, the battlefields are corporate boardrooms and server farms, and the casualties are supply chains and strategic leverage. Two superpowers are locked in a contest to shape the architecture of the 21st century. Welcome to the front line of a war where not a single shot has been fired. October 7th, 2022, Washington, D.C. Without a presidential address or emergency press conference, a 139-page rule appears on the website of the U.S. Department of Commerce. It is written in dense regulatory language. Few outside the semiconductor industry notice. Inside chip firms across Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing, they do. The document imposes sweeping export controls on advanced semiconductors and the tools required to manufacture them. It restricts the sale of high-performance AI chips above defined computational thresholds. It limits the export of advanced chip-making equipment capable of producing logic at 16/14 nanometers and below, DRAM at 18 nanometers half-pitch and below, and NAND flash at 128 layers and above. It also prohibits U.S. persons from supporting certain Chinese fabrication facilities without a license. In effect, Washington sought to cap China's progress at mature nodes while the frontier moved toward 5 and 3 nanometers. The policy did not begin a conflict. It formalized one. This is what 21st century great power rivalry looks like. It is not tanks crossing borders, but supply chains transformed into choke points. To understand why that October morning mattered, consider a simple reality. Semiconductors are the foundational resource of the digital age. In 2021, China imported roughly $430 billion worth of chips, more than it spent on crude oil. Semiconductors power smartphones, data centers, electric vehicles, satellites. An F-35 fighter jet runs on millions of lines of code and hundreds of advanced processors. And the cutting edge is measured in nanometers, billionths of a meter. In 1990, leading-edge chips were roughly 800 nanometers. By 2023, commercial production had reached 3 nanometers. Smaller nodes allow more transistors per chip, increasing computing power and energy efficiency. Control the most advanced nodes, and you shape the future of artificial intelligence, quantum research, hypersonic systems, and secure communications. There's a geopolitical concentration here. More than 90% of the world's leading-edge logic chips at 5 nanometers and below are manufactured primarily by one company, TSMC. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company operates out of Hsinchu, Taiwan, a self-governing island roughly 100 miles off China's coast, claimed by Beijing. Inside ultra-clean fabrication plants, machines costing hundreds of millions of dollars etch circuits measured in atoms. Each advanced fab costs between $15 and $20 billion to build. TSMC's Arizona expansion is projected to exceed $65 billion, among the largest foreign direct investments in U.S. history. But even TSMC does not stand alone. At the heart of advanced chip making is ASML, a Dutch firm that produces extreme ultraviolet lithography systems, EUV machines. ASML is the only company in the world capable of manufacturing them at scale. Each system costs over $200 million, weighs more than 180 metric tons, and uses high-energy lasers to vaporize tin droplets into plasma that emits extreme ultraviolet light. Without EUV, mass production at 7, 5, and 3 nanometers becomes extraordinarily difficult. In 2019, under U.S. pressure, the Dutch government declined to renew export licenses for ASML's EUV systems to China. That decision significantly constrained China's ability to reach the leading edge. Beijing responded by accelerating domestic innovation. In 2023, analysts identified a 7-nanometer chip inside Huawei's Mate 60 Pro, reportedly fabricated by SMIC despite sanctions. It was a signal. Restrictions slow progress, but they do not eliminate ambition. So Washington tightened the net. The rules also targeted advanced GPUs, such as NVIDIA's A100 and H100, critical for training frontier AI models. Limiting access to these chips constrains large-scale AI development, including military and surveillance applications. Policy scholars describe this approach as weaponized interdependence. In a world of integrated supply chains, bottlenecks become instruments of power. But semiconductors are only one theater. In 2013, Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure strategy spanning Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. By 2023, estimates suggest China had committed or spent over $1 trillion across more than 150 countries. Ports in Pakistan, railways in Kenya, energy projects in Africa. Infrastructure builds influence measured not in speeches, but in steel, debt agreements, and long-term access. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, valued at over $60 billion, includes the development of Guadaport, providing China potential access to the Arabian Sea and reducing dependence on the Strait of Malacca, a strategic choke point vulnerable in crisis. In Sri Lanka, heavy borrowing from Chinese lenders financed the $1.3 billion Hambantota port. When the project underperformed, Sri Lanka granted a 99-year lease to a Chinese state-owned enterprise in 2017. Beijing rejects the term debt trap diplomacy, arguing projects are commercially negotiated, yet the strategic footprint is real. Commercial ports can support naval logistics. Geography matters. Beneath infrastructure lies material leverage. In 2022, China accounted for roughly 60 to 70% of global rare earth mining output and controlled around 85 to 90% of processing capacity. Rare earth elements are essential for permanent magnets used in F-35 jets, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and precision-guided munitions. In 2010, during a territorial dispute with Japan, rare earth exports were reportedly restricted. The episode demonstrated how supply dominance can translate into geopolitical leverage. Control inputs and you influence outcomes. But the most opaque battlefield lies in cyberspace. In 2017, Equifax disclosed that personal data from 147 million Americans had been exposed. In 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 4 members of China's People's Liberation Army. China denied involvement. Regardless, the lesson was clear. Data is strategic capital. Comprehensive personal datasets enable intelligence mapping, recruitment targeting, and counterintelligence profiling. In May 2023, Microsoft reported that a state-linked group known as Volt Typhoon had infiltrated U.S. critical infrastructure networks. Officials assessed the objective was not immediate disruption, but persistent access, pre-positioning. Cyber operations operate below the threshold of war. No explosions, no troop movements, just access. The ability to disrupt power grids, telecommunications, or logistics systems during a crisis is a strategic multiplier. And then there's finance. As of 2023, the US dollar accounted for roughly 58% of global foreign exchange reserves. This dominance grants Washington extraordinary leverage. In 2022, Western governments froze approximately $300 billion in Russian central bank assets following the invasion of Ukraine. The message was unmistakable. Access to the dollar system can be weaponized. China has moved cautiously to diversify. By late 2023, its official gold reserves surpassed 2,200 metric tons after sustained monthly purchases. Gold is neutral, difficult to sanction, impossible to freeze electronically. Beijing has also expanded yuan-based trade settlement with partners, including Brazil, and signaled openness with Saudi Arabia. Yet the yuan still represents only a small share of global reserves. Reserve currency transitions historically unfold over decades, not years. This is not a collapse of dollar dominance, but a slow diversification. In semiconductors, the United States seeks to preserve a technological edge. In infrastructure and materials processing, China leverages scale and geography. In cyberspace, both sides probe quietly. In finance, the dollar remains preeminent, though alternatives are tested. Hovering above all of it is Taiwan, producer of the majority of the world's most advanced chips, claimed by Beijing, supported ambiguously by Washington. A kinetic conflict over Taiwan would fracture global semiconductor supply overnight. Supply chains would stall. GDP would contract. Military readiness worldwide would be affected. So who is winning? The United States retains unmatched alliances, research ecosystems, capital markets, and military reach. China commands industrial scale, strategic materials dominance, and expanding influence across the global south. Yet both face vulnerabilities, demographic pressures, debt burdens, political polarization, and economic slowdowns. Their economies remain deeply intertwined. Bilateral trade exceeded $690 billion in 2022. They are rivals and partners, competitors and customers. That interdependence makes this rivalry uniquely volatile. Decoupling is expensive. Dependence is risky. This new Cold War does not sound alarms. It appears in export filings, port leases, and lines of code embedded in infrastructure. It is measured in nanometers, metric tons, reserve shares, and terabytes. History suggests that friction between rising and established powers is common. Whether this competition remains managed is a defining question of the century. Because if economic warfare, technological containment, and cyber positioning ever cross a critical threshold, the boundary between cold and hot conflict may dissolve. And if it does, The consequences will not be measured in policy briefings. It will be measured in lives. For now, the war remains cold, but it is everywhere, and it is accelerating.